is we provide the brain with visual and auditory cues on when it's doing something desirable.
Social media is very dangerous. And I think that's a great point you made.
I never stop working, but I have enough flexibility to where I can, get away and have fun and relax. And I don't really have any, I feel really good about it.
What's up, everybody? This is Simon. On this episode of The Ideal Hour, I have Rachel Lambert, who is CEO of Braincode Centers. I had previously her VP, Angie Novak, on the podcast, and we talked about brain mapping, mental health, and now Rachel is gracing us with her presence and is giving us time to talk about mental health, and I think it's going to be a great episode. Thank you for joining us, Rachel.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
All right, so you have a degree in psychology. You're obviously board certified in neurofeedback, or you're a board certified neurofeedback specialist. Let's talk about mental health. How bad is it getting in the country and what you're seeing out there?
Goodness gracious. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that you don't see some sort of major headline or some sort of crisis happening. And there's all these different variables, at least that I believe, that are, creating the systemic issue. But not only is the crisis, I feel like, more mainstream, but people's desire to help get other ways to address their mental health is starting to grow, right? So not everybody's wanting to just go find a therapist to try to work on their mental health, or just go get a prescription to try to address their mental health. People are looking for other answers because counseling oftentimes doesn't move the needle for people. Medication, there's side effects, or people tend to not always do their best on medication. So I think it's a really cool time for mental health to create some really new solutions for people, which is one of the things that Braincode Centers obviously helps people do.
Obviously created this company, you started it. What inspired you to do that? And I agree, mental health is kind of all over the place, and it's finally getting the attention it deserves, or it's more in the mainstream, I would say, as opposed to decades ago where people didn't even talk about it. But why start Braincode Centers, and how did you come up with that idea? Did you meet Angie somewhere and you two teamed up and said, let's do this? Or how did this come up?
Yeah, I love that. I'm pretty open. I actually had a personal experience with neurofeedback when I was a lot younger. So I really struggled growing up. Grew up in a loving 2-person home. My parents are fantastic, but I was just a handful to raise, if you will. And I had gotten into some pretty significant trouble repetitively. And so at one point, my parents were like, this is seeming beyond just normal teenage rebellion. Our daughter needs some help. And so they sat me down one day after getting into yet some more trouble. And they were like, do you think before you act? Seriously, do you think before you act? And as simple as that question is, it started to make me think no, I just kind of do. And it was that conversation that led us to start to look for other ways to address mental health. And so I ended up going to get my brain map, and essentially the results showed that my frontal cortex, which is really like the decision maker in your brain, was going 150 miles an hour with no brakes, right? So as a young teenage girl, I'm sort of at the mercy of this really reckless frontal lobe. The pattern on the brain map exhibited bipolar disorder, which is typically a life sentence of medication management, right? You don't really just come back from that. You just mitigate the symptoms. That fortunately was not my story. I ended up doing an entire series of neurofeedback sessions, which is what Braincode now does for other people. And at the end of the therapy, I literally felt like I had a second chance at life. I was like, this is so amazing. I want more people to know about this therapy. So I dedicated the rest of my life to getting the certifications, working with some of the best doctors in the field, and then growing Braincode Centers. So then I met Angie a handful of years later, and her and I vibed and hit it off right out the bat. And now we get just the blessing to be able to go tell other people about what we love and the life transformation that it can help with.
Did Angie find a boyfriend since last time we talked? Because I asked her a question, are you brain mapping these people you're dating? And she said, I should.
Oh my gosh, I did the same thing before I mapped my husband. But this is funny. TikTok video that went viral that she posted, it got 40 million views. There was this gentleman in the video. And so without her intentionally doing that, she basically showed everybody that she is dating somebody.
Oh my God, that's crazy. 40 million views. That's a lot. She's a celebrity now. All right. So you started it because you saw a need for it, or you saw how it helped you and how important it is as an alternative to some potential medications or other therapies out there. And I agree, not one size fits all, right, for everybody. So this is a great opportunity for someone to try it out if they don't know why they're acting the same way. And it's funny enough, for my kids, I always ask them, why did you do that? So maybe they need something like this. In terms of brain code centers and neurofeedback, to dumb it down to the audience out there that is not even aware of this therapy, describe it to us and why they should consider it.
So QEEG, which is the initial brain map, is essentially a way of quantitatively understanding how the brain is operating, right? So it's a data-driven approach to mental health instead of a subjective approach to mental health. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoy it. It's completely non-invasive. We place a cap over our clients' heads, fill it up with a little bit of gel, take a recording. All we're recording is brainwave activity. And what we know about brainwave activity is it creates clinical patterns, right? So we're able to actually see the anxiety, the high stress, the ADHD, the sleep issues, the migraines, the trauma. You kind of name it, there's a clinical pattern for it. With that then baseline information, we're able to create tailored protocols for the neurofeedback therapy, which is the intervention that we specialize in. Neurofeedback in a nutshell is brainwave training utilizing rewards. So it's very Pavlovian in nature. If anybody's taken a Psychology 101 course, you're able to create learned behaviors by giving yourself reward or having exterior reward. That is as simple as neurofeedback is we provide the brain with visual and auditory cues on when it's doing something desirable. There are little sensors that are connected to the head. They're connected to our software. Again, nothing's being put into the brain. We're just feeding back to the brain with exterior stimuli when it's doing something good, if you will. Then over the course of time, as the brain repeats this habitry, it creates new neurological wave activity, new neurological flexibility. So it's a series of repetitions so that ultimately people can change their behaviors and really get them freed up from the symptoms that they're struggling with.
I love that. So you're rewarding the brain and letting it know that this is a good behavior and this is what you should be doing. And then the brain, after time, automatically, maybe with some updates, adjusts and understands that this is what I should be doing. That's pretty neat. It's kind of like training or working out in your muscle memory and so forth. And in terms of do patients or clients need to come back and after, let's say, a certain period of time? I would imagine in the beginning it's more repetitive, and then is there like a grace period when they should come back for a tune-up, I would say, for your brain?
Great question. I look at it more like learning how to ride a bike, right? Even if I don't ride a bike for 10 years, I don't need to relearn how to ride a bike in 10 years, right? When I did training, I was about 17 years old, so many, many moons ago, and I own a large neurofeedback company. And full transparency, I don't train my brain probably maybe once a year, just for like a stress reduction or something like that. I've never once, I literally don't have one pattern of bipolar disorder whatsoever anymore in my brain. And I never really feel like I'm regressing to any of those old symptoms at all. Now, everybody has stress, everybody has different things you can work on, but for the most part, I feel relatively good. That being said, some of the cues that we say to come back in is any sort of physical or emotional trauma, a traumatic brain injury on the field or in a car accident or something like that, a major emotional trauma. Those are pretty good indicators. Like, come back in, just do 2, 3, 4 booster sessions, and then that flexibility should continue. There's people though that don't even feel like they have to come back in. So it just kind of depends, but obviously I'm going to always err on the side of practice good brain hygiene, like take care of this organ that's so amazing and so powerful to dictate kind of how your life is. But you should never feel like, oh my gosh, I just had a stressful week, got to go back to Braincode Centers. It's not like that.
How would you recommend? I mean, I would say stress is probably one of the biggest factors nowadays for people coming in. I'm probably guessing correctly, even though I don't work at your facility or anything like that, but I can imagine with all the bills, things that are happening in the world, the social media feed constantly with news of wars and you name it. How do you recommend people deal with stress nowadays, seeing a lot of people come in and really battling it?
There are so many different free and easy ways to help calm your nervous system and activate a parasympathetic state. And to be honest, I think we just live in a society that, number one, there's lack of education of the things that you can do. But number two, there's just straight up lack of discipline. I think we live in such a society where we get into our routine, we get into our comfort zone, and that's just kind of what we do. And people aren't willing to switch up what they're doing, and they just then live in this chronic state of stress or high anxiety or, oh my gosh, I'm not sleeping. But my question would always be like, okay, have you really created a discipline around breath work? There's a ton of different ways that you can get yourself from a sympathetic nervous system state, which is that hijacked stress state, down into a parasympathetic state just by utilizing the power of your breath, right? But do you know how to box breathe? Do you know diaphragmatic breath work? Do you know combat breathing? And if the answer is no, like, I would encourage you, go out and learn that, but then also make it a practice. Bilateral stimulation tapping. There's all sorts of different ways to disrupt stress signals in the brain, literally by just doing bilateral stimulation tapping somewhere in your system. So on your temples, on your knees. Cross crawl exercises, neuro dysregulation, right? How can you actually dysregulate your brain a little bit to reset you? And so there's all these cool little resets that we can do to help our body. But honestly, most people just don't do them. So yeah, that's what I would say is like, learn and educate yourself about what you can do to mitigate stress, and then take the time to actually do the prescribed interventions.
I love that, especially the breathing ones. I notice just even for me, breathing is such an important aspect, whether you're working out or in a high stress situation. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. In terms of your own working out or your own state of making sure that you're at your peak, and as you mentioned, you have a pretty big company, you have to perform and you have to deliver and you have to look presentable and so forth. What do you do for yourself as a good entrepreneur and CEO to not only motivate your team, but also make sure that they're top performing and they're dealing with life stresses, and ultimately they become kind of your stresses at work, because we see employees more than sometimes we see our significant others?
Such a good question. And goodness gracious, I wish that I had the right answer. I feel like some days I'm like, oh yeah, I'm crushing business owning. And other days I'm like, I need to go get all the coaching for business owning. This week is a pretty good week. So this is good that you asked me this question today. I work now, one thing I'll back up and say is I think there's a lot of commonalities from business owning and when you're an employer at the end of the day. However, my husband, who runs like $1 billion company, when him and I first got together, he was like, well, you need to do this, this, and this. This is what, creates success from a business owning standpoint. And God bless him, he's actually stepped into my company quite a bit and really, really, really helped me with the operational side, which I absolutely love, because he is way better at the operations than I am. And that being said, him getting very intimate with my team he started to understand, like, okay, not every business is the same. My business is a very high feelings business. I work with predominantly women. So I'd say 48 out of the 50 employees we have are women, and we're all therapists, right? So high in their feels. Being in an environment like that, I have had to very much so as a leader, like, remember that I have to be very empathetic, very understanding of how people are feeling, very understanding with like the term burnout and, taking care of people's emotions, because they're taking care of a lot of high needs clients, right? Now, that's a hard thing for me to do because that's not my innate drive, right? To be very feelings oriented. But for me to be a successful leader, I have to check in with my team. I have to be okay to step in and talk about feelings quite a bit. And so I really do think as a leader, you have to understand, how is your team driven and how are they drained? And if you do not know those, that you are going to miss the bat every single time. So very much so individualizing your leadership strategies, I think, is important, and not just as a team collectively, but then down to the person. Just like we tailor our treatment plans for our clients, I literally feel like I have to tailor how I show up for each individual person on my team. And so I've definitely worked at that over the years, and I'm still continuing to work on that. But that's one of the things that I do in the company. For myself personally, I definitely work out a lot. I don't really like the word balance. Balance is not my favorite word at all. I like harmony and mental health integration. I choose to live a very stressful and very fast-paced and very intense life that most people would look at and be like, I don't know if I want that. I make very intentional decisions on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis to incorporate mental wellness integration so that I can be really like putting good fuel into my engine, if you will, so that I can go the speeds that I want to. And really it just kind of comes down to that and being disciplined in those interventions.
I love that. So patience is something you had to work on, it sounds like, because you're a go, and you're dealing with a lot of people and they're dealing with a lot of different things that day, plus their clients. That's definitely something I will agree with, it being an entrepreneur as well, is how do you not come into the office and just go, what are you doing? And bite the lip, so to speak, or motivate someone in a different way. It's also awesome that your husband, who runs this big company, $1 billion business, you said, chose to help you out as well, because that skill set is so valuable, where you could really scale. And that's something I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle, is this point of what do I do next? Should I go back to school and retrain myself and so forth? And I think when that corporate structure comes in, it really helps. And I've seen it help before. That's awesome that you mentioned you're always kind of go on the move. I would imagine you need a lot of distraction. Would you say that's kind of accurate, where we need to go here, there's a vacation plan here? Do you have like your calendar fully booked up, and then you throw random things in as well?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I wouldn't say I need a lot of distraction, because I actually need quite a bit of peace as well. I always need something that I'm looking forward to, right? And I've actually been very intentional about that. So I'd say prehistorically, I didn't do that. I didn't put calendar dates that I was super excited about. We would just plan the next trip, but it's like, we're planning the next 3 trips out so that I know I'm going to sprint and I'm going to go, but we get to go relax on the beach in Cabo for 10 days. Girls trip with Angie, right, for a long weekend or something like that. And yeah, that definitely fuels me up for sure.
Yeah, I like to plan. I think a cool theory someone told me, or we came up with it somehow, is vacation every quarter, if you could afford it, of course. You work your butt off to get to that level, and then you have your sun time, your beach time, or a girl's trip, and back to work. And again, you look forward to some that keeps your mind going. How important is, when you're doing kind of these therapies, how important is looking forward to something for someone to move that next step into the better direction of themselves?
Oh my gosh, it's so important. So, even if you can't afford some luxurious vacation, is it you plan a hike in a new area in your town, or you go to a restaurant that you saw on Instagram that looks so trendy and fun, or you set yourself an intentional spa day with somebody that you love. I mean, I was chatting with one of my team that was really struggling with just, again, what she felt was balance, and she wasn't feeling filled up. She was feeling a lot of pressure and stress just in her personal life. And I asked her, I said, when was the last time, I know that she's really into like fitness, when was the last time that you went on a walk or went and ran or something? She said, God, I really haven't in a long time. And so I asked her, okay, because I know where she lives, I'm like, don't you live right next to that bluff mount right by your house? And she's like, yeah. I said, okay, well, how long would it take you to just, carve out 30, 45 minutes in your day and go up to the top of that bluff mount, look at the beautiful sky and the beautiful Colorado mountains, and walk back down it? And she's like, yeah, I could do it tomorrow. I said, all right, I want you to send me a picture when you're at the top, so I see that you did it. And she did it, and she sent me this beautiful picture, and she said, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. It's that funny Instagram that's trending right now. It's like, oh, you're feeling stressed out, Simon? Have you drank water? Have you worked out? And their answer to everything is no. It's just like, put your oxygen mask on, do the things that you know that you need to do to take care of yourself. And it doesn't always have to be a vacation. Plan that mental wellness integration into your life and watch how your engine starts to run better.
Great advice, Rachel. Yeah, I totally agree. If you can't afford it, you could definitely go out and walk by the pier, or anything to have something to look forward to. And I had recently a friend that got divorced, and that separation happened. I'm not going to say the names or anything, but I told him, I said, hey, that week that is, you're not having the kids and so forth, you need to plan out that whole week. And it seemed to have helped him. So I definitely agree with you. I think it's great. What about, so a lot of people post up a picture holding themselves accountable on social media. And you kind of mentioned accountability, send me a picture, do it and so forth, and not directly, but is social media causing a lot of stress in patients you're seeing, maybe in terms of comparisons to other lifestyles or distraction? They say the cell phone is like a jail cell. So what's your thoughts on that, Rachel?
Such a hard question. I mean, I think if we're all honest with ourselves, like, we're all half addicted to our iPhones. And while I think some people are better at noticing that addiction, other people are completely lacking the awareness of that. And I'm speaking more to the adults, right? So how is your phone addiction competing with your family life or competing with your productivity at work? If you're real honest with yourself, I bet you every single person is like, yeah, I was sitting there on my break, just wasting time. I think the more vulnerable group is the younger kids and the teens and stuff that they don't know that their brain, right, is producing all this dopamine. And so they're getting addicted to this dopamine rush, this constant hit of it. And so then without it, right, they're just going right back and getting those hits that they don't probably know exactly what that is. And I think we've seen, just back to the original question, mental health is on the rise, especially with that population. And I absolutely think that there's a social media component of that. I think that there's a lot of things that parents can be doing that they're not doing too, to put some protocols in place to help set their kids up for success. And I actually got a message. I have a 7-year-old and then a 3-month-old, and I got a message from my 7-year-old.
You have a 3-month-old? You look very fit for a 3-month-old. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. He's the cutest ever. So yeah, he's a love bug. But my 7-year-old, it was this cool message, and I didn't know that there was a actual, like, I can't remember what it's called, a document you can sign, but it's basically like, wait till some sort of grade to give your kids a full iPhone, right? So all these parents are starting to say, hey, there's power in team. If all of us don't do the iPhone, then they're not going to be comparing it to Charlie or James or John on the playground that does have it. And so I think that that's so cool. And why are we not all coming together collectively to make these decisions on behalf of our kids that can't make good decisions for themselves? And then there's no jealousy when it comes to the iPhone. So those things need to happen.
So does your 7-year-old have a phone?
Oh, hell no.
You're gonna judge me. We gave our kids phones, but they just text the grandparents nonstop, and the grandparents are upset with us. They don't really use them or go. There's no apps installed and so forth, but they'll FaceTime us and then text the grandparents. There's no YouTube, and it's kind of cute and funny. But at schools, we do get judged for that move. So I'm sure you're kind of going, hey. And funny enough, I had a Navy SEAL on the podcast who does like something more serious, child trafficking. And he's like, get rid of that phone, because there's so many vulnerabilities. And you're right, social media is very dangerous. And I think that's a great point you made. If collectively people or good moms out there get together and can manage it, it's great. And as adults, if we can accept the fact that we're addicted to it, I personally find myself going, I'm not going to pick up my phone for the rest of the night or day or whatever. That's also beneficial. In terms of just overall, have you ever put someone on a brain map while they're using their phone and to see the differences of what's happening?
Funny, people ask us all the time, like, can I come in high and you read my brainwaves? Can I come in on, and I'm like, I think legally we probably shouldn't do that, but not necessarily just reading raw brainwave activity with a phone present. I can almost tell you what it's probably going to do. But I have not done that yet. So that could be interesting for my team to just play around and see what happens. But no, I'm sure there's probably research on EEG brain activity and phone.
I think that's a great podcast or a great TikTok for you or Angie to get more, and then if you guys flash some nice photos or different things and see where it goes. I don't know. It might be creative. Don't
I
use
like
me.
it.
Don't
I'm
use
making
me.
a note telling Angie next week.
Good. As far as managing teams, what are some successes you could share? You mentioned you got to be patient, you got to be empathetic, especially around women, which I can understand. Men are men, women are women. I believe in that, the differences in biology and so forth. What are some of the common mistakes an entrepreneur can make, or what are some of the positives that you want to share? And I'm sure the audience would appreciate it, especially those that have businesses.
Every mistake under the sun. I'm getting a lot better I've now been in the field for 17 years and been running my own company for over 10, so about 11. I'm getting better at this. Hiring slow and firing fast, which is hard for me because even though I'm not the most empathetic person, I am a champion of all people. Like, I really want to see people win. So when people on my team are not winning, I have more of a tendency to give them way too many chances. And, fool me once, that whole saying, it's a real thing. Like, please don't do the same thing 3 times because I've sat here and given you chance after chance. Hiring is so difficult. You're never going to be able to hire perfect. I've learned that out the gate. But can you take some steps in the hiring process to make sure that at least you're hiring with a little bit higher level of confidence? I think that's really important. So, we have a pretty intense interview process, calling references, doing a hands-on interview. And then I even send some little quizzes, like some basic stuff. I'll send a free personality test for our team to do. And I just say, hey, feel free to send back the results. It helps me learn how to coach you truly. If you don't know how to just fill out the test, or you don't give it back to me by the end of the day and I interviewed you at 9:00, that already is starting to tell me about your intention at the job. So it's not even about the results of the test. It's what do you do with me giving you this test, a simple task to do.
How eager are you to move forward? How determined are you? And people that don't respond, you just don't waste time with, it sounds like.
So, following some tasks, being pretty intentional about the hiring process, and then firing faster, putting people on performance plans, making sure that, we're following up in 30 days, we're following up in 60 days. And if you're not following what we agreed upon together, then you're probably not the right person for this team. So that's one thing, firing fast and hiring slow. But on the other side of it, I've had a handful of redemption stories that truly make my heart just so happy. I had a person on our team, and they called me one day, and it was this whole entire thing, very stressful actually, because they had to step away for a little bit because of an addiction. And my husband was like, nope, they're not coming back. Absolutely not. And I just had this like check in my soul. I was like, this person would be such an amazing clinician with an even better story combating addiction if we let them back on the team, if they get clean and stuff like that. And sure enough, they go get clean, things are good. He kind of re-interviews and he really wanted to work for us, and obviously a lot of times an addiction story is rinse and repeat. You hear the same thing and you give them another chance, but I don't know. That was where intuition kind of comes to play. I just had a feeling that he could do it and that he was going to be awesome on the other side. And that's exactly what happened. He is one of my best neurofeedback clinicians on the team. Every single client that comes into this person's setting and gets to work with him, I get the rave reviews about. And it just, he tells me all the time, Rachel, thank you so much for giving me a second chance. Thank you for believing in me, and thank you for not giving up. And I mean, it'll like bring me to tears thinking about him. He should be so proud of himself, and I am so proud of him. So, sometimes I think as a leader, you do take a leap of faith on some people and watch them blow you away.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you gave him a second chance. And it sounds like that he's, that's a loyal employee that wants to see you win as well and really believes in the company. We've talked a little bit about exposing kids to technology. We've talked about some inexpensive ways to also manage your mental health, including breathing and so forth. How does a client proceed with neurofeedback with your company? And what are they looking out to start? Is it just reaching out to you guys if they feel like they've tried other remedies, or maybe they want to try neurofeedback first?
First and foremost, do a free consultation. Angie and I still exclusively do 100% of the consultations, which is really awesome. It's something that we haven't delegated to this point, but I love getting to meet with people, educate them, empower them about their decisions. So taking advantage of that first and foremost, I think is really powerful. That way we can have a dedicated amount of time to really understand the situation and help people feel really empowered with this form of technology. Reading up on research, a lot of people want to understand the research around it if they don't understand it. So lots of research links on our website. We do try to be pretty active on our Instagram. So I would say follow us, listen to kind of what we say from an educational standpoint. But then, yeah, of course, if you're a good candidate, which the majority of people are, neurofeedback is a wonderful, wonderful tool, especially for kids, to set them up for success at a young age. Or if you've tried everything under the sun and it's not moving the needle. Second step would be get that brain map before we create your tailored treatment plan.
When it comes to just mental health, is one of the most important parts of it working out, or kind of just being physically active? Would you say that's a big improvement aside from the stimuli that you guys are sending to the brain?
Yes. I mean, I look at health so holistically. Of course, the physical element is so important. Nutrition, right up there too. The amount of very unfortunate American, especially diets that are out there, it's sad. Honestly, it's just sad. It's sad what we give our kids to eat. It's sad what we choose to eat on a day-to-day basis. Again, I understand that health is an investment, and food these days, it's expensive, but there's a lot of swaps that you can make. Getting rid of dyes out of your kids' food. Like, read the labels that you're feeding your kids, and if it says red 40, blue whatever, yellow this, don't give it to your kids. There's no need for it, honestly. So educate yourself about the ingredients that you're literally fueling your most important vehicle with. But yeah, exercise and nutrition, I'd say, are two huge things.
Recently we just cut out all cereals from our house, anything processed and so forth. And it's incredible how crazy food has gotten in terms of not being real food. And, I'm glad more people are becoming aware of it. There's an app I personally love to use called Yuka. You scan the barcode of a label or anything out there, and it'll tell you if there are additives such as your red 40 or anything hazardous, forever chemicals and so forth. And every time we shop now, we scan. And
it's called, what is it? I want to write it down.
It's called Yuka, Yuka. It's a free app, I think. But what it does is it tells you exactly what's good or bad. It rates it, and it tells you if there are harmful chemicals in it. But I would agree. Have you seen, do you think, you already mentioned that it affects your mental health, but sugar, for example, I would say for children and for even adults is a major problem. Processed food's probably a major problem. Have you seen a change ever when someone changes their dieting completely and comes back and remaps their brain, so to speak?
Fantastic question. We've never done like a baseline where they just do the EEG and then the prescription is change of diet and then remap. That's actually a really wonderful study that somebody should do. Most people that are coming to us, right, they want to address the brain health side of things too. We are also telling them, here's what you need to do from a nutritional standpoint to set yourself up for success. So I'm getting a combination effect, right? But I can just tell from personal experience. I'm a little bit strict when it comes to food and stuff like that. But I don't even have to be strict anymore because I've been strict for so many years that my kid now has his own willpower at 7 years old. He looks at labels. He tells his friends, when there's something that's not good in the ingredient list, and so I would say your kids listen and they watch. And if you're not empowering your kids at a young age with their own knowledge, you're holding them back from kind of making nutrition something that they can understand on their own too. This is sad, RIP Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A. So I let my son watch it. He won't even eat it anymore. I don't want to eat all those chemicals.
I was so sad to see that video. I was like, no, not Chick-fil-A, because it was a good little getaway from time to time. Yeah, I was distraught. But you know what? In-N-Out doesn't have that. I did my research after. So that's the cleanest real beef and all that. So if you do have to, for the parents out there, take your kids out, In-N-Out's probably the cleanest fast food that I've been able to research, which is kind of incredible. I love it. Yeah. It sounds crazy, but that's what it is. Let's talk a little bit about more brain mapping and the mental brain. Obviously, you know who Elon Musk is. He's doing Neuralink. What's your thoughts on it being in this space? Putting something in your brain versus kind of going on the external, which is what you guys are doing. I have my opinion, but I want to know yours.
No, I like cutting edge stuff. I think it'll be interesting to see. Opinions out on me right now because I don't really know. Yes, it's definitely intense. It's an intervention. If there's things that it can help down the road that, are not being addressed now, like medication resistant depression or helping us get into some sort of state that we can't get into now, it'll just be really interesting to see where it goes. But I think, anything that's that intravenous into our actual system, it's a little scary. So I don't know, jury's out on that for me so far.
I was going to say the same thing. It's a little bit scary, but I think if properly done, the technology of it could really help some lives. I mean, he's trying to make people that can't walk because the brain will communicate. I would imagine also it can adjust a drug addiction potentially. And if that could happen, that would be something incredible, because I would imagine the brain is what's desiring the drug. It's not the body. So imagine being able to trick it and not allow it to think that you want it. That's kind of crazy. Of course, there's the bad side of things. But also it'd be kind of cool to get a karate black belt skill downloaded into your brain. Can you imagine that? Being able
we all become professional golfers. I don't know.
Incredible. All right, let's talk a little bit more about you as we start wrapping up the podcast. You mentioned you love to travel, and obviously you're successful. You've got a team going on, and do you work while you're traveling on vacation, or are you shut off? Angie, let's go get margaritas, and let's do that thing. Forget the office.
A little bit of both. I feel like I never stop working, but I have enough flexibility to where I can, get away and have fun and relax. And I don't really have any, I feel really good about it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I have created, again, a sense of harmony in my life. I would say what gets frustrating is when there's fires that you have to put out on vacation that were unpredicted, but it's part of it. So it just kind of is what it is.
And then as far as your favorite vacation spots, you mentioned Cabo. We're in Cabo, or where else would you love to travel?
My husband travels internationally all the time. So he gets to go to Dubai and Brazil. It's for work. But I told him, I said, I need to just tag along with you and travel the world with you at some of these places. We went to Africa couple years ago, which was absolutely epic, and went on a whole safari. So I love traveling. I haven't been to Costa Rica yet. That's another one on the books, but we'll see.
Did you go to South Africa?
We went to We landed in Nigeria and then went over and did a safari in Kenya.
That's my wife's dream tour. I don't know if I'll go with her, but
I think you must. It's epic.
I've recently seen a safari gone bad where an elephant tipped the car. I'm sure you saw that too somewhere on the news, and
That
I was
will
like,
happen.
yeah, I was like, this freaks me out. In terms of just developing as a person, if you could go back in time and communicate or tell yourself something, let's say you have like a time machine there, what would it be? And what would you say? And, do you have any regrets, or kind of what advice would you give to your young self? Because I think there's a lot of young people out there, they don't have mentors, and I don't think everyone's as patient nowadays, but what would it be for you?
Really solid question. I don't think that I would change anything. I've been to jail a few times. I've gone through business situations that had to be dissolved. I've gotten threatened by multiple lawyers on crazy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I wouldn't change any of it because I honestly feel like it's sharpened me to be the person that I am today. And I know that that might be a little cliche, but I always kind of told myself, and I think that just kind of comes down to my personal faith, like all of it has a purpose, and it's my choice at the end of the day. Do I want to turn this pain into purpose or be a victim in this pain? And I've always just chose like, this day sucks, this situation sucks, but I'm going to be better because of it. And so I would just keep telling myself the same thing that I've always told me, like one step in front of the other, keep going and use it for your good.
I love it. Every mistake, a life learning lesson versus an embarrassment or regret. And in jail, were you worried or scared ever, or were you tough?
Oh, it was horrible. It was the scariest situation ever. I'm sorry, but I don't have a place in jail. That's not where my story was going to end. I was like, I don't understand why I'm here, but I was there. So yeah.
It strained you out. I've been to jail as well. It's not fun. And definitely you could see who belongs and who doesn't, sadly. And I'm glad you realized that too. In terms of work-life balance, we discussed it. Let's talk about a few advancements in the realm that you're in. Is there anything coming out technology-wise, or is there anything you're looking to get into? I know you guys are really big on social media. We're going to link it below as well. What are some of the next steps for Braincode Centers, and what would you like to see in the next few years ahead for you?
Two answers to that. The first one is our remote program is growing like wildfire. So when I first started the company, we only had our clinics, right? So people were limited to coming and getting to train their brain in person. But with advanced technology and just cutting edge advancements in the field of neurofeedback, I actually have a headband here. We now can utilize these really awesome headbands that people put on like a wearable, and the sensors sit flush to their surface of their scalp. And then they have handy dandy our lovely iPhones that they can download their Braincode remote app on, and we get to tailor make all of their protocols. So we have clients all over the world that now get to actually use mental health training in the comfort of their home. So I can't wait to just watch that side of things blow up. And then the second thing, I just got off a call before this with a really awesome guy. You guys can look him up. His name's David Nurse, but he's a keynote speaker, but he's fascinated with flow state. And if you don't know what flow state is, it's basically like tapping into heightened level of potential and awareness neurologically. We all, I believe, can tap into flow state. It's not just exclusive to professional athletes. And so there's not really a formula on how to get into flow. There's a lot of triggers and different people that have researched flow state a little bit. But what we've decided is that there's a gap in a formula. Like, what is step 1 through 5, and how do you get in there as a business owner, as an employee, as a professional athlete? And so we're about to submit our application for the International Research Bureau to be able to go through the study and come up with an answer for people. Because everybody wants to understand, how do I be a better performer, a better wife, a better husband, a better parent? And I think your brain is a unlocked part of that. And so we're going to help people actually understand how to get into flow state better. So
a guideline with once you understand it. That's incredible. And everybody does want to always improve. I mean, I haven't talked to too many people that don't go, hey, I wish I was doing this better. I wish I was exercising or running. That's incredible, Rachel. I see that you've got a lot going on. Maybe some last final question here would be, what's a good brain look like for a good significant other in terms of
Like,
mapping?
this is funny. So there was this guy that I was kind of into back in the day, and I mapped his brain, and I was with my friend, and there's an area of your brain that holds a lot of trauma. So if you have unprocessed trauma that you haven't worked through, doesn't matter what it is, addiction, emotional trauma, childhood trauma, I don't know what it is, but whatever that trauma is, if you have not processed it, we're probably going to be able to see it on your brain map. And I wouldn't think that they're probably the best mates for anybody. Those are people you need, like, go do some other work on yourself and then come back. But I saw this one pattern and I was like, haven't seen that pop up. Couple weeks later, I was like, oh, and there it is. And I was done with that. So people that have unprocessed trauma, I don't think that's the best version that people can date.
You guys need to partner up with Match.com and have everybody processed for this. That would be incredible. Thank you so much, Rachel, for dedicating your time. Anything else before we go that you want to share? I know you've shared quite a lot, and we'll link how people could find you. I love the technology that you have going on. That's incredible to be able to do a brain map, anywhere in the world. And even do it in a time where you most need it, where, that's the beauty of technology, where someone could be on the other end. Is one question I would ask for the audience, is this private pay? And I think I asked Angie before. It is private pay currently, or is it also through insurances that's covered?
I used to bill insurance way back in the day, and it's a whole beast that's not fun to be in network with. Honestly, we can provide receipts, which are super bills with the codes that people can take to their insurance company. But currently, yes, we are private pay. I might get a network with a company called Care Credit, where people can basically take out kind of a loan to do it. But currently, yes, we are a cash pay practice.
And we'll link everything below, how to reach out to Rachel. She'll brain map you. Hopefully, guys that are watching out there, and girls or ladies, you don't have any trauma, because she'll find out about it. And I'm glad Angie has a hit 40 million video out there. I haven't seen it. Say hi to her. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about you and your company. Kudos to you. And I personally enjoyed this podcast, so thank you.
The real question, Simon, is, was it better than Angie's? So then I can go tell her.
I'll only tell you guys over margaritas. How about that? and then we can dive into it.
Where are you based?
Bay Area. So if you guys are out here ever, do let me know. Like 20 minutes outside the airport, San Francisco. If you're ever in Napa, you and your husband, please let us know. We'll definitely have a good time, and bring Angie along too, because she had great energy. But we're out here, sometimes here, sometimes Florida. I love Florida as well. Just the beaches and the safety around it and so forth.
Love it.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing. So, I can't answer that. Just go back to your question.
Determined, ...
I'll need a few margaritas, and I promise you there's no trauma you have to worry about if you ever do meet me. That I know of.
So much for having me, Simon. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.